Alright, I'm just going to be playing a little bit of TumbleSeed on Switch. I'm playing it with a Bart Simpson PlayStation 2 controller. And actually, I'll just quickly mute the music. So, I actually really like this game, but it's really hard. And I do have a plan. My plan is to make an arcade controller specifically to play TumbleSeed, because I really like the game Ice Cold Beer, the arcade game. And with that you actually have proper arcade game. You have a proper arcade machine like this. So I've modified these little arcade controllers to only do vertical. I've got two of them for left and right, and then I've also got these nice big switches for the controls. Okay, and I'm taking apart the PlayStation 2 controller, which will then work with the Switch. So eventually, anyway. Alright, so when I do get that going, I'll hopefully show that. But in the meantime, I am just going to play some TumbleSeed with my Bart Simpson PlayStation 2 controller. Okay, so I didn't actually realise this, but these levels weren't in the original game. They added these in an update, so I just thought that they were the actual game. The actual game is apparently the adventure mode, which I haven't really played much. Currently I have finished the forest 3 quests, and I've finished the jungle with 2 quests, and I haven't really played the desert yet. So I might have a go at the jungle and see how we go with that, just to get into the groove a bit before I go into the desert. Okay, so TumbleSeed, if you're not aware, is basically, there is an old arcade game called Ice Cold Beer, and that arcade game is a physical machine. So you actually have physical up-down levers, okay, and there are physical holes with an actual ball, like a pinball ball. It's played vertically, so you're actually staying in front of the arcade machine. You're making the ball rise up on top of a bar. You can rise up on the right or the left, and as you lower on the right, it's going to roll down to the right. As you lower on the left, it's going to roll down to the left. So that's basically the game. So the actual arcade game, Ice Cold Beer, really just has a series of holes. So it looks like the bubbles in a can of beer or a glass of beer. This is a sort of a tribute to that old arcade game. That arcade game was listed as an influence on this game, or the influence really. But they've added a whole lot more elements. So you've got the little characters, and the actual little character you got here is pretty cool, pretty cute. But you can also add special powers. So let's just have a quick look. Special powers that you can unlock as you go through the game. And I'll just have a quick look at some of those. So don't lose your thorns when damaged. We'll see what those mean in a minute. Don't take damage from falling in holes. This one lets you get invisible. This one talks about planting flowers for free, or powers for free. Enemies drop more crystals. I'm going to go for the don't take damage from falling in holes. That can be useful. Okay. Oh, and I've also got a quest. So my quest is tough not getting hurt. Don't be afraid to stop and observe your surroundings. Right, so the quest has already been activated. My quest is to get to the end of this level without taking any damage. So just do it, I guess. So as we go up, if I press the A button or the circle button on my Bart Simpson PlayStation controller, I can choose different powers. So the main one I'm going to choose probably for most of this is going to be the Thorn Vine, which allows you to grow thorns which can damage enemies and also help protect you. Okay, so once I get past this opening stage, oh, I better turn the music back up. Okay, hopefully you can still hear me. Okay, so here we see the holes. So in the arcade game you would see just a series of holes. Here we have the holes plus a bunch of areas you can roll over and activate. So I'm just going to do this first. So I've activated one, and I've got my... Okay, so I was able to spend one crystal on one thorn. I now need to switch to this one so I can grow more crystals. That... Very cool. Speaking of crystals, I missed this first crystal just here, so once I've grabbed that one, I'll then be able to use that to purchase another thorn when I get to that point. It's one of those games you really have to play a few times to get your muscle memory before you'll actually get anywhere. Oh, it's not something you can just jump straight into. Okay. Okay. Oh. It's going to be a lot of oops and... Okay. Oh! If I hadn't picked that power at the beginning, this pink one here, I would be losing health every time I fell down to the bottom. But I did lose my thorns. So there's a different power that lets you not lose your thorns when you fall down to the bottom, so it really depends what your strategy is. And really the ideal thing is to not fall down holes at all. And it really takes a bit of practice before you really get the feel. And this is notoriously a very difficult game. There's an article on Gama Sutra by the developers where they talk about how the extreme difficulty of this game, at least at the beginning, was what they blamed for a lot of their poor sales. Unfortunately, this game didn't sell that well, at least not well enough compared to a lot of other indie success stories. Which is a shame. It's a shame because it's a really good game. Okay, let's try this again. Alright. So one strategy is to stick to the side and avoid, which means you can avoid most of the holes. This might be a little bit easier to do in the arcade game, just because with the arcade game you don't have these power-ups you need to roll over as you go. That other eye symbol up there, that's a symbol for a shop type thing where you can buy more powers. I don't know if I'll bother doing that just yet. Oh, it's really... Okay. Alright, probably wasn't the best way to go. I'll try the other side this time. The music's really good too. There's going to be a lot of gritted teeth and gasping as I play this, so... One thing that's really difficult is keeping it steady as you go up. So I'm hoping when I get my custom controller built for this game, it'll be slightly easier. Alright, I'll just have a quick look at this. Even though I probably can't afford the actual powers. Okay, so what do we got? We got Flood Fruit. I'm actually not super familiar with most of the power-ups. Cloak Fruit. Cloak Fruit lets you hide from enemies. But you do have to spend crystals on those powers as well, so there is a bit of a strategy to what you buy and when. Not that I'm any sort of expert, and I haven't played this game in quite a while. I only just decided to pick it up again recently. That gold crystal is worth 5. Worth 5. And what I should have been doing is occasionally planting flags in some of those pot plants as we go, which would let me make a checkpoint, basically. Alright, so because I've died all these times, I'm very short on thorns. I've still got all my health though, which is good. If I was losing health, I'd be able to get more by using this power. So every time you roll over one of those little areas, whatever power you have chosen is the power you'll be using. Most of them require crystals from you, but one of them will let you purchase crystals from the game, redeem crystals from the area. No. Okay. Alright, seeing a few more deadly enemies now. That spider's pretty scary. I might just... So some enemies are blind and some will follow you around, so I might just... Oh, okay, so I managed to kill an enemy. The thorns are actually pretty difficult because you can see the... if you only have one thorn, it's rotating. So if I have to really time it right, and I only did one damage. Okay, so I'll have to try getting a couple more thorns. And at the moment I've got 6 crystals, which is not too bad. Okay. Alright, up to 3 thorns, which is not too bad. Come on. And it's often worth killing enemies just because for the cost of a couple of thorns, or it really depends. Sometimes it's worth killing them. It really depends because they'll drop crystals, and if they drop more crystals than the thorns you expend, then you'll end up at an advantage. Okay. Alright, and again, my mission is to... Oh! I failed the mission. Alright. I'm going to restart. Yeah, my goal was to not take any damage as I went up when I got to the end, and I did take damage from the spider, so I basically failed the mission. And because I've already passed this level and got to the next one, which is the desert, there's no real point in me continuing unless I actually succeed in that mission. That's really the only thing I've got left to do in this jungle area. So I'll do one more run, and if I fail, I might go and try the desert instead. Okay. Now, this layout is the same as it was previously, whereas the adventure mode, which I haven't really played that much, which is supposed to be actually the actual main game, is a roguelike. So the layout of the holes and all the enemies and so on would be random. Okay, so crystal, let's get more crystals, but you have to redeem a few times before you'll get a couple of crystals. I think it's 3 patches to roll over before you get 2 crystals. Okay, and one more. Okay. Alright, so I've got a couple more crystals, let's get some more thorns. Okay. Stop. Okay. Oh, no! Okay. Lost all my thoughts, but still got all my health. This is a hard game, and you do have to. Yeah, and I haven't hit my stride yet. Okay. Alright. So a few of the other powers that I like, there's one that lets you turn invisible if you go really slowly. And that's good when you're fighting against, when you've got lots of enemies to worry about. So I'm playing on my Bart Simpson PlayStation 2 controller because the PS2 controller is good for this game just because the two levers are symmetrical, and because I mean it kind of feels easier to me that way, because you're literally controlling the left or right in the same way, the exact same way. Whereas if they're not symmetrical, like the default Switch controller, because you got one lever lower than the other, it just feels off to me. I mean, you do get used to it, but but what I would usually play this with is a Wii U Pro controller, which also has symmetrical levers. I'm using the PlayStation 2 controller just because I want to test it, to make sure it's actually easy and reliable enough, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to make a custom controller, arcade controller for this game, using the PlayStation 2 that I've salvaged. PlayStation 2 controller that I've salvaged. Alright, I'm going to shut up for a little while. Okay. Alright, here comes the spider. Just get a couple more thorns. There we go, that's one. That's five. Oop. Oh! Fuck! And again, I didn't plant a flag so I could get a checkpoint. So I have to go all this way again. So the arcade game Ice Cold Beer, there's another version of it called Zeke's Peak, which I've never seen in real life, but there is an arcade shop in Melbourne which I went to a few times, which has a copy of Ice Cold Beer, which is really cool. Just being able to physically feel the ball rolling back and forth is just really awesome. Oh! I did think about seeing if I could buy an Ice Cold Beer machine, but from what I gather, it's one of those games where it's a game where Ice Cold Beer, because it's only got one single screen with set holes. Once you've done it a few times, once you complete it a few times, it's really it hasn't got a long life to it. It's you basically just, all the collectors I've seen online, they just end up selling it because they've beaten it a few times. It stops being fun. Well, yeah, it's just a rote memory thing. Alright, so that was the jungle. And I didn't finish my mission, but I'm actually going to try the desert for a little while. Alright, so I'll try it for a little while, then I might sign off and try and get my controller working. Oh, and I need to select a power. So every time you complete a mission in these beginning stages, you unlock a power, and I might choose the one that lets me keep my thorns. Yeah. Okay. Oh, missions. How's the hunt? Okay, so once we kill 5 enemies, try the sneak aura if you're having trouble with the shooters. What's the sneak aura? Which one is that one? Do I? Ah, yes, okay. Okay, I will take your recommendation. So the sneak aura, yeah. So you see when I go slowly, I turn invisible, which means I'll be able to sneak up on certain enemies. Okay, so I have not played much of this level. So this is going to be mostly new. We'll see how I go. In the Gama Sutra article, they have stats on how far people have gotten, and less than half managed to get through the first level, fewer than half, and then something like 8% get through the second level, and something like 0.2% finish the game. So, very difficult game. Although I am playing the later version, which apparently they did add some tweaks to make it a bit easier. Things like tweaking the powers, yeah, various things. Okay, wasn't super paying attention then. Okay, need some more crystals. Okay. Not entirely sure what these little cobwebby things are. I think they're... I suspect... I don't know. Let's see. By cobwebby things, I mean the holes are covered by the cobwebs. Alright. So this time I did lose 1 health because I chose a different power this time. Okay. Can I do it? I lost my... No, I still lost my thorns as well because I chose the sneak power. Oh. Okay. So this is the third level, third mountain. So there's a few. Obviously, they do make some changes for each mountain. This one's got the coverings or cobwebs on some of the holes, and also that disappearing or reappearing hole that we just saw just then. Okay, so I need to choose thorns. Get some more thorns back. That's okay. Oh, that's fine. Okay, so I have 5 crystals. Bounce berry. I'm not entirely sure what that does. Starseed lets me shoot stuff, I think. That costs 1 crystal. Let's have a look. Oh, and if I felt like it, there's like little testing areas where you can go in and try these powers out before you commit. But just go with it. I still have 5. I thought it cost me a crystal. That was close. Alright, so coming up on an enemy. Okay. Oh, yeah, so I'm not actually... Oh! Not actually entirely sure what the star does. Oh! Oh, it's a Mario star! Oh! Okay. That's me dead. Okay. Okay. Alright, so now I'm dead. It will come up to the typical rogue NetHack Spelunky screen showing me how far I went, what powers I used, how many crystals I had, etc. Alright, back to the beginning. I'm going to go back to the main menu. Yep. Alright, I'm going to have... Yeah, so there's the adventure mode, and it's got this Spelunky thing where it's got a daily challenge. It's also got a weekly challenge, which is pretty cool. So it's basically you can, as opposed to the daily challenge, you play it once. This one lets you do the same challenge over and over again for a week. So if you have friends who play this game as well, then you can compare their score and try and get better and better over the week. And then I think this is specific to the Switch. We've got a 2-player battle, which I've never tried. Alright, I'm going to try the daily challenge. Oh. Okay. Alright, so now we're in the adventure mode. The power-up screen is here, but I don't get missions anymore. So I can only unlock the missions in the... Oh, hello. Only unlock new powers in the 4 peaks. I think. Oh, these are actually different. Okay. Alright. Well, as I said, I haven't played this game much for a while, so... And I haven't played the adventure mode hardly at all, so... These might just be random. Certain projectiles stick towards enemies. Plant powers to free while at 1 health. Don't take damage from falling in holes. I might choose that one. Okay. Because I do fall in holes quite a bit. Okay. Alright, so I'll see how far I go in this and then finish up. Oh! So I lost a heart for that. Health and a thorn. Alright, I'm actually going to stop talking and turn off my camera for a little while just so I can concentrate. Okay, so I'm going to sign off here. If anyone watches this, hope you enjoyed it. I do recommend this game. It's really cool. And it didn't sell super well, so I do recommend seeking it out on Switch, or I think it's just about every other platform as well. And yeah, have a go if you get this game. Have a go at doing the same thing I'm going to do, which is make a dedicated arcade machine for it. These things are not that expensive, and the buttons aren't that expensive either. If you want to do a bit of soldering or something, you need an adapter to get the right controller plugged into your Switch, or if you've got a PC, you can just use an old Xbox controller or something. And you would need to do a bit of tweaking. Anyway, just a fun little project for me to do. All right. Okay, signing off. Thank you for watching, if you did.